Welcome to Dot Life, Dorchester's hyper-local source of news, commentary, and analysis. We are recording from the record company, and you may be hearing some ambient noise of someone recording their band down the street in the studio next door. We are really happy to have that backing track. And I'm here today with Seth Daniel, the news editor from the Dorchester Reporter. Seth, what do you think of the backing track we have today?
Wow, you always need some good music in the background to keep things going.
I know. I feel like it makes us kind of legit.
It's bass. You know, some heavy bass.
I kind of want to dance. I don't know.
Right. Either that or it's like a car driving by. I don't know.
Hey, Seth, did you catch the NFL draft this weekend?
I did, many times, and in reverse order, too.
What did you think of the Pats' moves?
I thought they were pretty good. It's always not very glamorous, but you got to draft people, big guys who are going to protect the guy who throws passes, and that was the key. I remember so many years ago when they were rebuilding for the second time or something, they drafted a guy out of Colorado, and it's like, what in the world, just a big 6'6" giant guy. But he ended up being great, and Tom Brady loved him. And I think that's where they're headed again. They drafted a tackle again from LSU.
Was it Will Campbell?
It was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So,
I thought that was a good move. That suit, the green.
Yeah, that's his thing. It's maybe he needs some, I don't know, maybe some more New Englandy tips on how to dress it. Maybe in the Bayou, that's cool. But
we picked Miles Harrison or Maxwell Harrison first, and he the silver spangled. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. The clothes they wear, it's strange. It's some of them are more conservative, and others are, trying to make a name for themselves. But I did think they did a good job, all the way from the top to the bottom. They did get a great running back from Ohio State, who probably should have gone higher. So we'll see what happens with him.
Didn't you also pick Farmer? James Farmer, is that his name?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think we had our eye on him, and we got a lot of our picks, I think, snatched right before we got them. So
I know that's one of the tough parts of the draft.
Yeah.
You gotta move fast.
Hey, are you wearing the right headphones? Because you've got another set of headphones right in front of you.
Yeah. Well, I thought like when I'm on, I would bring in something, kind of as part of Dot Life, the things we'd find in our cellar, or maybe that come out of the radiator when we're vacuuming.
Are you sure you didn't find that in a museum somewhere?
Well, I might as well. It was my cellar or my third floor, one of the two, and you could definitely put together quite a history lesson up there or down there.
What have you got?
So what I have today, I brought is a Sony Walkman, circa probably 1991. Now this was an edition that was actually an upgrade because it had a very cool digital screen here where you could see the radio station or the track playing.
This has radio and tape deck?
Radio and tape, yeah.
Wow.
It did. And the radio wasn't so great because there was, no antenna. and then when you went in the subway underground, it was just like So I got a lot of use on the red line, the orange line, every other line with this thing, green line. And there was a tape in here.
Wow, look at that tape. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that side and this side. So what's on it? Be careful.
Seth, you were very cool.
Maybe. I don't know. Let's listen to this and we'll find out. I don't know.
So what do you think is on that tape?
Probably like a combination of Sonic Youth would have been on there, some sort of hardcore band, Eric B. and Rakim, the Beastie Boys. It was a lot of like South American bamba drumming, and just all kind of jazz, probably some jazz music.
Okay,
blues.
That's an eclectic mix.
Yeah. I did a little DJing, so I tried to like figure out what people would want and mix it all together. Certainly, what was the Guru? The guy named Guru. He was from Boston. He was a hip hop guy. So he would have been on there too.
Where did you live at the time?
I lived in two different places then. So it would have been JP, so in Hyde Square.
Okay.
But prior to Whole Foods, that was when it was
high-low, right?
High-low. Yeah. High-low, and you couldn't park in the parking lot. But you could sleep there. I lived there, and then I lived on Fort Hill, in like behind Roxbury Community College.
Yep. Okay.
and then got married. We moved to Dorchester in early 2000s.
Okay.
And this is still, it's in the house. It was in the cellar. They tried to throw it away. I pulled it out of the garbage. I said,
you found this secondhand. Wow.
No, it was mine, but it was stored away. A lot of my things get stored away.
In the hopes that you'll forget about them.
Yeah, and it was in line to go out, and I said, "You can't throw that away. This is history."
Wow, I'm very glad that you brought it today.
Yes, thank you. So that's my little thing. Next time I'm on, Lord knows what I'll find.
Do you take that when you go to a story? Do you record audio with it?
No. Well, I could.
Do your interviews with it?
Maybe I will. That's not a bad idea. If you have any batteries, we can get to work.
All right. Well, your tape deck relic notwithstanding,
Yes.
let's get into some of the news from the Reporter this week.
Definitely.
One of the coolest things that was on the front page is the second church in Codman Square got its new steeple this week.
It did.
This has been going on for a while.
A long while, yeah.
So you were there.
Yeah, I was there when they took it down. I heard secondhand when they found catastrophic rot, which meant lots of money and time.
That sounds like a band.
It's a great band. I would like a shirt that says that.
Catastrophic.
I'd wear it proudly. Yeah. So
and you'd have a tape of it.
Yeah, we could do the whole thing. And they should play at Dorchfest.
Absolutely. Next year.
Yes. Anyhow, so the second church is the new CPA program, which is community preservation. They've really utilized that well, and they've been able to get a lot of funding. First, they were just going to kind of repair it, but when they found the rot, it ended up they're going to have to take it all down. So they took it down by a crane. There's a dome and then like a lantern. They call it a lantern steeple, which is like the columns that go around it. And they took it all down. They worked on it. They ran out of money. It sat there for a long time. Then they fixed it again. They got money. And last Wednesday they put it back up. The top part. Earlier in the winter, they put the lantern part on.
This is with a crane? They lowered it?
A very large crane, yeah. And, the wind blows.
Were you nervous? Did you think
I was nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is hanging. It looked like someone made a joke and said, "Is Katy Perry on that thing?" Because it looked like it looked like the thing that they supposedly went into space with.
Yeah.
And anyway, they put it on. It's blowing, and there's guys standing up there on the top, seemingly with nothing holding them on, grabbing this thing. But I mean, they're professionals. They do it every day.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I mean, it hadn't been taken down since 1808, probably.
Wow.
And it was put all back together. It's at a minimum going to last another 200 years.
Wow.
Because, they use some, it's a historic preservation, but they also, epoxied things to keep them, weather tight. They're going to put copper on top of the dome. It's going to look beautiful. I mean, if you can remember when they did that to the State House.
Yep.
And the new copper really shines. And then they just got some money. We just found out this morning a batch of money to repair the clock that's on there below it. As well as the rest of the tower, and they're going to get the bell in working order, and they hope to ring the bell. Their bell is a Paul Revere and Company bell.
That's
one
cool.
of the few around.
Wow,
it's up there right now. It just it can't.
It just hasn't been rung. Okay.
Yeah, because the things that hold it in place would just fall apart.
Oh wow.
So they were able to get some new infrastructure that holds it in place. Actually, from Park Street Church.
Okay.
Their bell, they had a new belfry made, and they gave it to Second Church. And so it's going to continue to live in Codman Square.
And they just found out this morning that they're going to get that money.
They did.
Wow,
They
cool.
just found out. They had hoped, but today it was announced, and that's really good. That just means that it's going to really look like a showpiece. It's kind of been a little blighted, and then there's a park being built right next to it. The second phase is to have another piece, and it's going to be like a green. They call it. The village green. It's going to really be like that. And
it's such a cornerstone piece in that
right.
little intersection there.
Yeah.
What is the time frame on that? Do you know?
So as soon as they finish the work that they're doing now, which would be like the copper and getting the carpentry done, everything in place on the steeple, they'll probably just move right into this other part, which is going to probably be a little more glamorous because it's going to be stuff you can see. There's going to be one of the faces of the clock is glass, and the clock itself was donated by the Baker chocolate family.
Okay.
So, the lofts that are still there, they went to that church and they donated the clock. And the glass part, there will be lighting behind it. So there'll be colored lighting and all sorts of for whatever time, you would want, whatever season. And it's just going to be a really nice thing. They already restored the Great Hall across the street, and it's still undergoing some renovations too. So the whole area is really getting an uplift.
That's awesome.
Historically.
Yeah, very cool. Similar story around the development side of things, the Shawmut area. We've had this housing development, years,
Oh, yeah.
different
Many.
proposals.
Right.
This latest iteration obviously has been going on a couple of years now, I think.
Yeah.
And there's been several lawsuits. Latest one just wrapped up.
Yeah. So, there has been many things. This one, it was refined. It went back and forth. The neighbors are really unhappy about it. Most of them.
Can you talk a little bit about specifically what this is? The Epiphany School
Yes.
lot, right?
Yeah. So there's an auto body shop there, Fitzpatrick Brothers. It's been there a long time, and the family is just sort of winding it down. The business is winding down, and housing is a better use. Now, what kind of housing has been up for debate for a long time?
Yeah.
And there's been a couple different developers. In fact, the current developer has proposed something and then scrapped it and left, and now he's back.
It was originally townhouses, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, well, there was that. There was another developer who proposed something like 30 units, more of a townhouse type of thing.
Yep.
The neighbors there, it's Melville Park. It's historic. All the homes are intact. And they kind of think that it should remain something like that, adhere to the zoning. And they went as far as filing these lawsuits. And they've been going through court. This one, these three were really dismissed on a technicality. So you had a certain amount of time to respond. In some courts, you would have 60 days. In this one, you had 30. Maybe someone, I'm not sure how that happened. They didn't respond. And so it was thrown out. Are they going to appeal? There's a possibility.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. But that's still being worked out. But it's been going on a long time. That debate was really fiery. I went to a few of the in-person meetings, where they presented the early plans, and there were people very upset with it on one side, and then there were people actually on the other side who were like, "We need housing. This is a where else if not next to a red line stop."
Very close to the T.
Well,
Yeah.
I like
Steps.
across the street.
Yeah. It is a small lot. I do understand.
It is small. It's a lot of housing in an area that doesn't have that. But I mean, if you look around, there are buildings that are older, probably from the 60s that were built there. But there hasn't been anything this big in a while in that area. And, it's a bigger thing. I've got a story I've been working on for some time about that, where there's, not this one in particular, but a lot of, where you're talking about the side streets, 1, 2, 3 families, and all of a sudden you'll see they're going to bulldoze it and build a 9-unit building or even 22 units. And so, there's a lot of that squeeze going on as more people want to live here. It penetrates the neighborhoods. And, there's a fight. There's people who've been there a long time and they want to keep it the way it is. There's other people who say, hey, I want to live here too.
Yeah.
But where?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You were able to attend, I think, some of the Black April commemorations this week. How were those? Which ones did you go to?
So I went to one yesterday that was at the Dorchester Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which is much smaller. It was a group of former refugees from Massachusetts and New Hampshire. They had a flag raising downtown at City Hall yesterday. I didn't attend that. But I went to this one out here.
Okay.
It was small. And
That's right. Is that on Marcy?
It is.
Okay.
It is. And, they said their piece. They said it's important to fight for freedom. It's not guaranteed. It's a group that knows.
Yeah.
Anyway, the bigger event, though, was on Saturday at Boston College High School.
Okay.
Which was the commemoration event that's been put together, sort of a cornerstone piece of what's been a longer year-long effort, which is pointed at putting a memorial in Town Field, in Fields Corner.
Yep.
That's still ongoing, and that was a part of this. But honestly, this was event on Saturday was really polished and really well done. It had an exhibition that was museum quality, which is looking for a home. It may find one someday soon. The hope is that it will be permanent, and it's of a quality that should be permanent. The work that's gone into it's amazing. And then there was also, I would almost say like a musical, like an American musical that they put together with dance, music, skits, and even guest speaking. That was all blended together on a massive stage. It was probably a good 600-700 people who attended.
Oh, wow.
It was very large. And what was the thing to really note was that it was almost like it was healing, like in real time. People were healing from these wounds. I mean, they're just we can't even imagine it. Of what they went through, what their parents went through, even those that were born in the United States, trying to understand, what was this war, and there's so many different varying viewpoints. And even here in America, I don't know that we've taught it at all, if we have, probably not that well.
Yeah.
People still don't know what to think about it.
No, I think it's been more of a let's just ignore it kind of approach. Yeah.
Right. I mean, when I was in high school, there were still refugees arriving under the humanitarian operation, which you'll see a lot of people in the Dorchester Parade who wear the South Vietnamese Army, Air Force. Those guys and their families came in the 90s, which was really an effort of John McCain, who had been a prisoner of war. And when he got back, he didn't let it drop. He didn't ignore it. He kept fighting for them. And they were able to come in the 90s, but they had been through so much. A lot of what was talked about there was dealing with some of these guys, these soldiers. Some of them are in their 80s, some of them in their 70s. And they, Black April is when the United States left. The war changed. China became more friendly with us, and Vietnam wasn't that wall against communism anymore, and we kind of just softened, and we wanted to leave.
Yeah.
And we did. And it's much like Afghanistan, actually. I felt the same then. And these guys were left behind. And what happened to them, they were put in re-education camps, tortured. One guy from Dorchester was telling me he was tortured for 8 years. He had been like a public information officer, like press.
Okay.
And he had worked with all the American networks. And then when we left, he was put in this camp, and he escaped from the camp about 8 years later by bus, and then on a boat, and then ended up safe in Dorchester in the 90s. So there's a lot of scars. Then there's the people who came by boat in the 80s, who were traditionally like just civilians. And that journey, that's a whole other story, that harrowing journey overseas and being captured by pirates and tortured and unspeakable things. But, when they did get here, it was hard. We have so many resources now, right? When people arrive, we can see that right now with the state. There's a big debate about that, about how much we're going to spend on people who just arrive in tough situations. But in the 80s, when these folks arrived, there was nothing for them. No one spoke Vietnamese. There were no services for them. A lot of times the oldest child I've heard so many stories, they were sent to the Fields Corner Library or one of the others in Dorchester to learn English from a book, a dictionary, so that they could help their parents figure out what to do. There was nobody helping them. They had to just learn on the fly. And there's a lot of scars from that too,
It's so reminiscent. Well, it's so, it reminds me now of the Afghan translators who
100%.
we have all but abandoned in many cases and just left to fend for themselves after they were so supportive of us in our efforts during the war.
I know it's a troubling trend, and I feel the same way about Black April as I do about how we ended Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And it's just too bad. I mean, and what's remarkable about the Vietnamese Americans here in Dorchester is that, if I look at it from an American point of view, and I'm like, I would never want to talk to, I would hate the American government. I'd be so upset. But there's nothing like that. They still are just thankful. And they're like, they came over here and died for freedom. They're fighting for freedom, and we can't forget about that. And, there was a guy who's actually going to be one of the an honorary parade marshal for the Dorchester Day Parade, and he spoke at length about what happened. He was speaking to the kids, actually. He was telling them, there's so many questions you have. We haven't been able to answer them because it hurts too much. Now we're going to answer them. What happened? And he told it from his perspective, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
He said, we won the war. We won every battle, but we lost the war.
Wow.
Yeah. But it ended up we lost the war, but we never lost a battle. We didn't really lose to the North Vietnamese in any battle that mattered, but we ended up losing the war and in our country. And that was tough, to explain that. And, there's kids who are 14 and 15, and they're trying to comprehend that. They were born here. Right. They only know Dorchester, Fields Corner, right. Adams Street. So it was interesting. And, he was saying how in 1972, I believe it was Nixon visited China, and it changed everything about the war, and it changed how America supported the South Vietnamese, and it led to the end, which was us leaving so abruptly in 1975. And so he went through all of that, and then at the end he was just saying how, but we love America, we love that they came and that they protected us, that they never forgot about us after they left, and they brought us here. And he said that the things are so hard, but, now we've succeeded. He's talking to the young people. You guys have done well in school, in arts, politics, and business, and we have a future that's free, which is all we ever wanted. And I'll tell you, I fought back tears. My connection to Vietnam is like family and friends who were Americans who went over there, some who didn't come back, some who came back and were never the same. So it was a really emotional moment. What a transition period we're in for that community and the American veterans too. It's a very touching thing on Memorial Day at the Dorchester Vietnam Veterans Memorial. The South Vietnamese soldiers come, so do the Americans. They all get along well, and it's very unique. Yeah. And
really important to keep those moments alive. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to forget, and especially to explain to the younger generation, we have an extraordinary resource because we have, firsthand information from both sides. Right here in our neighborhood, as opposed to a textbook that might water it down or mix it up. Or
may not even be addressed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's something I've always found interesting since the first time I watched the Dorchester Day Parade, and I'm like, why are those guys here?
Yeah.
Who are they?
Yeah.
How'd they get here? A lot of people don't. I've heard people who misunderstand and they boo them. They don't know what they're there for. Why are they here? And I hope people maybe begin to understand what they are here for and what they represent. And what they went through.
Yeah.
Particularly the soldiers. The refugee situation is a different story in itself.
It is a complex topic. It is a complex relationship, but it is worth taking the time to understand.
Yeah. It's a very rich community and very patriotic.
Yeah. Oh, somber, but
yes, let's have a laugh.
Sticking with the somber topic, actually, you also went to the Terrence Clarke Day. Can you talk a little bit about what that was about and who Terrence Clarke is?
So Terrence Clarke was a young man from Dorchester. He went to, I think a lot of places claim him. Roxbury claims him. Yeah. We claim him. But he did. He went to school in Dorchester. He went to the Davis Leadership Academy at one point, which was in Fields Corner. It's now closed. And he was just developed into a great basketball player. He ended up going to some private schools, the Rivers School, which is in Weston, I think, and then the Brewster Academy, which I think is in Western Mass. But anyway, he became a great prospect, a great high school basketball player, really talented, generational, actually. And there's a lot of good basketball players that come out of Boston, and he was noteworthy. And he went to the University of Kentucky, and he spent a year there. It was off and on his time there. He was hurt, but he was certainly a huge prospect. He was considered a lottery pick, which in the NBA would be like, I think, first 10.
Okay.
So, it's big money.
Huge. Yeah.
That's why it's the lottery.
Yeah.
And anyhow, he was training in Los Angeles. He was 19 years old, 2021, and just preparing for the draft. He was training with a couple of other people, and he got into a car accident, and he died in that car accident one day coming from training. It was a hard moment because he was really looked up to by a lot of young people, a lot of people his age. It was also 2021. A lot of things got lost in that period because we were still in COVID, and we were arguing about shots or no shots or, whatever it was, masks or no masks. And his death kind of maybe got a little overshadowed by that time period, like everything else, honestly.
Yeah.
And it was also in Los Angeles. So the news hit here, and it was tough, and it's been tough for young people. And what the news was last week was they named a square for him, which is at the Vine Street Community Center, which is a hub for basketball. Now, they've already named the court there after him.
Okay.
Very, very soon after his passing, actually. And if you play basketball, you're a young person in particular, Vine Street is where you go. And he came out of there. He played there as a little kid. I once talked with his father at a different event. They have a turkey giveaway in his name every Thanksgiving as well.
Yeah.
And that's something he wanted to do, actually, and so they carry it on, his family and his parents. And his father still remembers dropping him off, and everybody knew he was exceptional once he got to that high school age. And one of the key things that was said the other day was that his dad said Terrence always wanted people to know him, know who he was. And the funny thing was they all thought it was going to be through basketball. But in the end, it hasn't been. It's through, his name living on to give back, whether it's the turkey drives, all the things that they do now for him in his name. And he was only 19. He cut short. But his name really has lived on, and he's become well known, but not for dunking the basketball or hitting three-pointers. So it's really remarkable what they've done to keep that going. And the people who remember him, it's a strong group, hundreds. There's a strong group of coaches, youth coaches, and they all work together. When they see somebody who stands out, they pick up the phone and they get noticed.
That's great.
And that happened to him.
And that will live on now. That's
yes, it
cool.
will.
Quick update on White Stadium.
Yes.
Just a couple of little things that were announced this week. So block party permits required. I'm sure that went over well.
Yeah, that's going over. Well, there's just the idea is to keep people. There's no parking.
Yeah.
So when this is up and going, honestly, it's just 10,000, and I don't know if they're going to sell out every game, but you'll have thousands of people at one time coming, and they have no parking, so they don't want everybody coming in and clogging up the neighborhoods. So they developed a walk shed zone, basically, and it's just a zone of streets. There's 203 streets where this will apply. And JP, Roxbury, Dorchester, I think about a third of them are in Dorchester. So you're talking the Four Corners area by Franklin Park Zoo, Blue Hill Avenue, and Grove Hall. And what's going to end up happening is these protections, there's going to be a lot of towing and ticketing, so you can't drive from wherever you are and just park on Seaver Street and walk to the game. That's not going to happen. They're encouraging people to take shuttles from T stations. One of them would be at JFK, UMass, or to take satellite parking shuttles or any other. They have an Uber lot, rideshare, I should say, not Uber. Anyway, and so that's the whole purpose, to really mitigate for residents. But in the process of trying to mitigate, it's a tough area. It's not easily accessible.
There's no train anywhere near there.
No. So it's a tough area, and what they end up having to do is you're going to have to, we all have the neighborhood stickers. Some people, Dorchester. This will be a new white stadium.
Okay.
Right? So you'll have to have that. Otherwise, you're going to get towed or ticketed. And you get one visitor pass.
Okay.
Right? These are for game days, not all.
So if you're a resident, you just keep that on your car all the time.
Right.
And you can have one visitor. Is it like a placard that you can transfer? Okay.
Right. It's a placard.
Okay.
and you'd put it on your visitor's car. So this is during game day, so games, this is another thing that I think there was a misconception that, when they were talking, the city gave examples that games would be on Saturday, practices on Friday. And they said that many, many times. But really, it's up to the league and television.
Yeah, right.
There are television deals, and games are going to be when the schedule comes out. And this is for next year, March 2026 it starts. It could be on Friday, they could be on Saturday, or they could be on Sunday. And occasionally on a weekday, maybe.
Okay.
Right? So that means if you live in that area, you're really going to have to be on your toes.
Right.
You're going to have to think ahead. And that's an area where you've never had to think ahead because there's nothing happening.
Right.
There's not a massive event. There is the Caribbean Festival. So you do, people have practice on that, and they don't necessarily like having to think ahead for that.
But the Caribbean Festival is a lockdown situation, too.
It is.
Yeah.
And so people are thinking, now I've got to have that festival. There's other festivals that are a little smaller, but they're still there. There's the BAA half marathon.
Yeah.
That is a lockdown situation if you live there. And now you're going to have 20 professional soccer games too.
Yeah.
And so in order for the city to try to figure out, now that there's more, what if I want to have a family gathering after church? Or what if I want to have people over for a birthday party on a Saturday?
Yeah.
How are we going to have all those cars come in with one placard? You're not. So now they say, why don't you get a block party permit? And so now they're in a position, the way they've explained it, and they're still getting input, it could change, but they're in a position where you'll have to apply for this permit, and then the city's going to review it to make sure it's a legitimate family gathering,
Right.
that it's not some scam.
You can't just do this every Sunday.
Right, and serve Budweisers in the backyard to people coming to the soccer game. I have a new occupation. I'm a host. No, so you can't do that. But people are wondering. That's maybe a little. Do I always know when I'm going to have a group come over for hanging out? Do people come spontaneously? Can I plan 6 months ahead for having people over in my
how
living
long
room?
does a block party permit approval take?
Great question. Long time sometimes.
It's not fair to say you have to plan ahead to have an impromptu gathering. Like, I get why people would be annoyed by that.
I do too.
But it's only for parking. It's not that you can't have people over. They just can't park in that spot.
They can't park there. They would have to walk or take the T or do something like that. I guess they could take an Uber, but I think that circulation is going to be
a ride share, Seth. A ride share.
Yeah, I'm going to learn. But anyway, I think that circulation is going to be difficult too.
Yeah.
Right, and this is 8 hours, so it's 4 hours before the game.
Yeah.
The game's about 3-4 hours, and then 1 hour after.
Okay.
So you're talking all day, and that could be on a Friday. We haven't even begun to talk about if there's a game on Friday, that's maybe it's at 5. Mm-hmm. There's a health center right there. How's that going to work?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of other things, too. We don't know the schedule until January. If you're having a graduation party for your son, daughter, nephew, niece in May, you're going to have to book all that way before January.
Right.
So we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. I mean, it's a tough situation if you live over there. You're going to have to really get used to something different.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's the news.
Yeah. Last item, a little bit more fun.
Yep.
Taste of Dorchester.
Yes.
Was last week.
Oh, it was great.
You went?
I did go. I always go.
What was your favorite dish?
My favorite dish. This year, it was not a dish, but it was a drink. Fresh Food Generation, which is on Talbot. They also have a food truck.
Yep.
It's been around forever. They have a liquor license coming any day.
Yeah, I was going to say, they don't usually do drinks, do they? That's
no,
new.
It's a new thing. So they've passed the city's licensing board to get one of the new liquor licenses. It's still being they're being background checks and stuff at the state level. They should get it any day, before the summer. So they previewed some of the drinks that they're going to have.
Cool.
They did a mocktail. There was no alcohol, but this is kind of the taste you're going to have. They kind of put a few of them out, and they were great. They were really good. I can't wait to go down there. They have a deck, a little outside patio. That'll be nice. So that was one of my favorites.
We should say this is the Massachusetts Affordable Housing Alliance signature
Yes.
event.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Taste of Dorchester is raising money. They do home ownership. I think I had to go to Maha before I bought my house. I took the class. And so many people have gone through there. And it's also just a fun event. It's at the IBEW. So there's parking. It's easy to get to otherwise. And all the best restaurants are usually represented. And there's always a few new ones that spark up conversation. There was a cake place this time, Clarke's Cakes, which is out of Commonwealth Kitchen. So it's doesn't have a brick and mortar. But they did, and I didn't even know it. It was a vegan cake, and I had no idea. And it was very good.
Okay.
And even my teenagers were impressed with it. And they didn't know either. So we came out of that, discovering that place.
Are you vegan now?
No. I'm not. I'm not and won't be. But it was, it was good. It was well done. Let's see. I'm trying to think of another dish. I mean, there's the Jamaican place Merle's Kitchen.
Yep.
Which is on Washington Street. Always has a massive line. This year, I didn't even wait in the line.
Really?
But it is always a favorite.
Who won?
They haven't announced yet, as far as I know.
Okay.
I did not hear yet. There was a very interesting dish from DJ's Market, which is a Polish dish.
Okay.
Called Hunter Stew. That was hearty.
It sounds hearty.
It was hearty. Cabbage, kielbasa, carrots, but a really good taste.
Is it served over bread or something, or is it just
served over like a lot of cabbage?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a stew.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was a really good one. That took me by surprise. They also have their Polish donuts, which I already knew about. Those were good.
Yeah. That's near your office, right?
It is. Yeah, it's on Boston Street.
Okay.
Yep, that's a favorite. What else? Shanti was really good this year.
Okay.
Indian.
Yep.
Cuisine. I enjoyed that a lot. Their presentation, they had it on some naan bread, and it was really great. I thought it was a good dish, too.
So we'll have to keep our eye out for who wins this year.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
What's coming up next week? Anything that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, next week we have quite a few things coming. I mean, we're ramping up because Dorchester Day is coming, and there's a lot of stuff in between that. You have Mother's Day, Haitian Unity Parade is coming, the Memorial Day. There's a lot of different things there. Dorchester lost its Memorial Day, other than the Vietnam veterans. Used to be a really big one at Cedar Grove, and we kind of lost that, and it hasn't come back.
Yeah, Bill and Linda mentioned that that was one of their favorites.
We really need
back
that
in the
back.
Day. Yeah.
I don't know what to do to bring it back, but
Yeah.
so we don't have that. But one thing I am working on is some research that some teenagers did, the Bold Teens in Codman Square. I think they're part of Codman Square Health Center, but it's a teen program. It's been around for a long time, and I'm just working on. I won't give it all away, but they did some research on smoking. They got a grant from this anti-smoking group and statewide group, and they began checking the stores. But they, in the end, found that the real action is online and in our neighborhoods and on scooters. So stay tuned for that. So it's I think the whole vaping trend was something that started in the suburbs, never really made it to the city all that much, but it has now made it. The tobacco companies are creative, so watch for that story.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Well, thanks for joining us.
All right.
Great
Thank
to
you
see
for having me. Yeah, it's been great. We talked everything. We talked Walkmans, NFL draft. I came in and we had some somber moments.
Now we'll have to do a little dance to this music.
I almost forgot about it.